Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day and a wonderful weekend. We're taking a quick peek here at Bitcoin. Keep in mind, usually on Mondays I'll update based on the overall weekly candlestick closure. So for right now, we're just going to mostly kind of get a quick perspective on where we're at now versus yesterday. Of course, we've broken through that tentative resistance at 90,000. I want to emphasize the word tentative because it's not a guarantee that that's going to be a support level moving forward, but it's also a stronger likelihood just based on that being kind of like a psychological support or resistance level. Okay. Now again, we saw a pretty strong push to the upside yesterday with an extra volume there. As soon as we finished our recording, we could see that 89.7, that 90K range basically didn't hold at all. Price took off, continued back down here just a couple of hours ago, and now we're looking at a potential continuation higher. So we're going to talk about that and a few other things. Keep in mind, this is a low volume weekend, folks, not to be trusted. This is like that shady friend that always hits on your girlfriend. You don't want to trust them. It's just not really worthwhile. And Bitcoin on the weekends is basically like that. So the last 12 hours, we can see 91,000 to 91.5 is a small amount of liquidation. There's a decent chunk upwards about 93K. And that's normal, right? 93,000 is that rough estimate of that recent resistance, the all-time high. So we can presume there's going to be liquidation levels between now and then. Now, all that being said, that's the last 12 hours. Let's look at the last 7 days rather, and kind of see what's up. This tells us a little bit better kind of where we're at here in this sense. In other words, where heavier concentrations are at. So we got heavier concentrations at 92,000.1 or higher. So again, getting above 92K, I would say would be a pretty significant continuation potential, or at least in other words, the price is more likely to go higher if we see that level. Between now and then, it's really hard to say. Just to speak candidly, I mean, liquidation delta is coming back down. We're at this point right now where the price should continue higher from a momentum standpoint, and also a macro support, basically a trend line continuation rather. But the overall sense here is that it's still too early to tell, and trading on a weekend is just, I wouldn't say it's irresponsible. It's just less, there's more risk, more inherent risk trading on a weekend. And of course, there's some really cool altcoins taking off today too. Some ones that I plan to cover, like Ethereum Classic, Litecoin, and a handful of other older coins that are finally back on track. And a lot of it hinges on the simple fact that Bitcoin got back up over 90,000. It seems like altcoins really seem to do very well over 90K for Bitcoin, and the inverse applies as well when it's under 90K. So again, there's that psychological resistance and support level. Anyways, take a look here at open interest. We could see the largest concentration at 89,700. Well, that's like our average entry for a Bitcoin short right now. Okay, and that's kind of just an area of confluence. So that was supposed to be a resistance level. Price didn't even bother to hold there, and it continued higher. So we're going to have to reevaluate and see if this is worth holding on to the short, or maybe considering even closing it a little early in the red, which we've had to do a few times this month, as a matter of fact. I've closed out 2 or 3 trades early because we get invalidations more frequently than normal. But again, these aggressive movements, folks, that's just like, that's tried and true standard Bitcoin behavior. And in fact, oddly enough, I just drew out a inverse head and shoulders, which kind of almost looks like one. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. Let's look at the daily time frame, work our way down, kind of see what's going on. We're at 90,900. Simple moving averages, daily time frame, still bullish, folks. There's no other way around it. So as I've mentioned previously, this is not going to be a good indicator of, what kind of trade you want to take, basically. The simple way to understand is that we're going to be bullish here for quite a while unless Bitcoin just really continues down. Bitcoin has to be below 85K, I would say, for us to break bearish, at least on the short term. More macro perspective here, we still got plenty of time before any of these SMAs are tested. So the big picture here is that Bitcoin's still in pretty good shape. Just recognize this too, and I like to reiterate this and just reaffirm it. We have 81.7 upwards of 85K as a fair value gap. It's kind of that golden pocket area. So that's my original inclination to consider the price action dropping to that level at some point. So if it doesn't come to that range, 80 to 85K is that fair value gap. Once that occurs, the price action should very well recover from there. Again, that's if it continues lower. The price is on the way up here. In fact, we had a pretty monstrous yesterday, a strong bullish engulfing candle here, and then today so far we're seeing a doji candle. So it's not like a super confident. Usually a doji candle followed by a engulfing candle can result in a turnaround. Once again, that's just a candlestick pattern. That means very little, but the truth is I don't think we're quite out of the woods yet here, just because we broke above this little resistance level. So what we want to do is we want to pay attention to two things. We want to look at the volume and recognize kind of where we're at, and of course the overall trend. So let's talk about the trend here first, and just recognize the point of control. Basically 88,000 is that local point of control. So we're seeing a lot of confluence there. Anytime the price comes into that range, it just wants to basically turn around. Okay, that's like kind of the new support level. So 88K, again, that's kind of, I was expecting 88K to break. It didn't. And since it hasn't, the price has recovered since. Okay, so that's kind of just a standard scenario there. The truth is, though, majority of the volume is below the price action, therefore implying we have support below us. We can also recognize too here that the 20-day SMA is working its way up. The price is back up above it, which is a positive sign. So that generally is construed as a bullish sign, kind of letting us know we're on the right side of the tracks. We are over 50 on the RSI, of course, we have been for some time. This has basically been just a consistency for Bitcoin. Till we break below there, we're not really truly on the bearish side of things. So as I mentioned previously, considering it like a short trade, for example, with Bitcoin, anytime you consider a short with Bitcoin right now, you need to know there's inherent risk that the price is going to go up just very ridiculously. That's probably the best way to describe it. In other words, there's no real reason for it to go up right now based on the overall sense that it's just like massively inflated and like, why is nobody taking profit? It's kind of a weird thing, right? But the truth is, with all these indicators, they're so overinflated that everything's going to show bullish when it may not be. Okay, and that's why you got to look at smaller time frames. But the 4-hour being a transitionary time frame, with us having the RSI over 50, that's generally construed as a positive sign. However, we can see that money flow index is starting to taper off. That's usually a sign of reversal. But again, we're going into a weekend too. So low volume, we're going to see money flow index pull back on weekends in general. That's exactly why trading on weekends is kind of ridiculous, just because the simple fact that damn near anything can happen. You flip a coin, that's which way the coins are going to go, right? So again, just take that with a grain of salt. The whole point of me mentioning this is that we still see mostly bullish signs here that are letting us know that the price action is back on track. We can also see stochastic RSI swinging up. MACD is kind of going sideways. That's usually somewhat of just kind of a wash there. So nothing super stellar and amazing. The key takeaway here is that we broke our descending trend. We're no longer establishing lower highs. We are in fact establishing higher lows, and we got to presume it's going to continue until it doesn't. Now, the funny thing about Bitcoin lately is as soon as you identify the fact that we're in an ascending trend, the price will just crank down and just basically destroy anybody who's a late long. Okay, the inverse applies too with late shorts as well. Right back down here, it seemed highly indicative the price was going to keep going lower. And what do you know? We got a weird pump on Friday afternoon just before markets close. Now we've gone sideways and down since then. So again, this is not a very trustworthy situation. I don't like when Bitcoin behaves like this. So in general, I'm going to kind of avoid it. Now, with us being in a short trade that is slightly in the red, I think our average position is 89,700. The question here is, do we let it ride or do we close it out? Well, the short answer is that it would be responsible to close it early. The alternative answer is that it's a weekend. The likelihood of the price action just slowly trickling down lower makes a lot of sense right now, and I don't feel super concerned because it's a low leverage, low position size play, at least again for me. So I guess the question you got to ask yourself is, if you're in a high leverage trade, you may want to consider trimming some of your position there, closing it essentially. And or just maybe adjust your stop loss lower so you don't face any type of significant loss. Again, that's just kind of how you got to be responsible with trading. Again, we can have a very high success rate as a community, but the truth is these things are going to happen every once in a while. And the important thing, it's not what happens that defines you, it's how you respond to what happens that defines you. So I think the important thing here is to make sure that your risk tolerance is in good shape, so you're not risking too much in the first place. So maybe this is a good little heads up on, hey, the market is crazy right now. It's important to make sure that you are safe and effective, and just make sure that if you are in a long, for example, you adjust your stop loss higher. If you're in a short, honestly, I think it could literally go both ways right now. Because again, we're seeing a lot of weakness. The volume is starting to dry up. Every time we see a volume pump here in the last 5 hours, every one of those volume pumps have been immediately erased and gone down. So I do think there's a lot of profits being secured this weekend. And if history repeats itself, sometime later this evening when Asian markets open, we're going to see a pretty monumental movement in either direction. So all the more reason just to go ahead and adjust your stop losses to the appropriate risk tolerance for you. Everyone's different, and you've got to learn to figure out what that is. But I don't personally feel too concerned with this. This is just, there was a pretty low volume increase here yesterday. The volume is obviously tapering off as well leading into the weekend. So I don't have a lot of faith in Bitcoin really creating any all-time highs this weekend. Okay. I hope I'm wrong and the price continues going higher though, because that's only good for our spot bags and there's nothing wrong with that. But you let me know your thoughts. Comment below. I'm done rambling in circles here, and I hope that you learned something today. Obviously, if you want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is the site, link down below. A lot of new traders coming over to our community. Make sure that you read through our signals guide so you know how my signals are structured and maybe appropriate risk tolerance there. And also tune in for our trade alerts too. This is available for pretty much anybody who's a member of Premium, Pioneer, and otherwise. And I just kind of provide you with insight on trades I'm planning to take trades with, or coins I'm going to plan to take trades with. Truthfully, there's been a lot less opportunities that I see in the market, but again, I can't have eyes everywhere. There's tons of coins pumping here and there, and it's hard to cover them all. So FOMO is a very real thing, folks. Try not to give in to it. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Either way you look at it, we'll look forward to seeing you back early next week. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you.